There was once a time before the investigations, before the sexual abuse conviction, when rich and famous men loved to hang around with Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire money manager who loved to party. They visited his mansion in Palm Beach, Florida. They flew on his jet to join him at his private estate on the Caribbean island of Little St. James. They even joked about his taste in younger women. President Trump called Epstein a terrific guy back in 2002, saying that, quote, "He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side," close quote. Now, Trump is on the witness list in a Florida court battle over how federal prosecutors handled allegations that Epstein, 64, sexually abused more than 40 minor girls, most of whom between the ages of 13 and 17. The lawsuit questions why Trump's nominee for Labor Secretary, former Miami U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta, whose confirmation hearing is scheduled to begin Wednesday, cut a non-prosecution deal with Epstein a decade ago rather than pursuing a federal indictment that Acosta's staff had advocated. And I'd like to introduce the article for the record, Mr. Chair.
It will be introduced.
I'd like to ask you about this. And first, a couple of questions. My understanding is that there is a pending civil lawsuit filed by a couple of the victims in that case seeking to argue that they should have been given notice prior to the plea deal being entered into. Is that your understanding as well?
My understanding is that there is a pending civil lawsuit. The Department of Justice has defended the actions of the office in that matter under both President Bush and President Obama's administrations.
The opening that I read suggests that you decided as U.S. Attorney to cut a non-prosecution deal, that part of the decision was that that non-prosecution deal be held private, not appear in the public record. And there's an allegation that I just read that you did not pursue a federal indictment even though your staff had advocated that you do so. Is that accurate?
That is not accurate. Let me address the, one of the difficulties with matters before the Department of Justice is that the Department of Justice does not litigate in the public record or in the media and litigates in court. Let me set forth some facts. This matter was originally a state case. It was presented by the state attorney to the grand jury in Palm Beach County. The grand jury in Palm Beach County recommended a single count of solicitation not involving minors, I believe, and that would have resulted in 0 jail time, 0 registration as a sexual offender, and 0 restitution for the victims in this case. The matter was then presented to the U.S. Attorney's Office. It is highly unusual, and as I was speaking to some of your colleagues that have been involved in prosecutions, they mentioned that they don't know of any cases personally where a U.S. attorney becomes involved in a matter after it has already gone to a grand jury at the state level. In this case, we deemed it necessary to become involved, and we early on had discussions within the office, and we decided that that a sentence, or how should I put this, that Mr. Epstein should plead guilty to 2 years, register as a sex offender, and concede liability so the victims could get restitution. And if that were done, the federal interest would be satisfied and we would defer to the state. That was very early on in the case. I say that because the article goes on to talk about a view that the U.S. Attorney's Office was not aggressive in this matter.
Can I read one other statement from the article? Federal prosecutors detailed their findings in an 82-page prosecution memo and a 53-page indictment, but Epstein was never indicted. And then there's a quote, "This agreement, the agreement you described, will not be made part of any public record," the deal between Epstein and Acosta says. No. The document was unsealed as part of the civil suit in 2015.
I'm going to give you the senator time to ask his question and the nominee time to answer the question, even though it goes over the 5 minutes.
Thank you.
So, Senator, again, to address your question, and I can't discuss the details of the case, but let me take it generally. It is pretty typical in prosecutions for an indictment, a draft indictment, to be written. That doesn't necessarily mean that that draft indictment is filed, because that draft indictment does not consider often the strength of the underlying case. And so as part of any plea, it is not unusual to have an indictment that says these are all the places we can go. Yet at the end of the day, based on the evidence, professionals within a prosecutor's office decide that a plea that guarantees that someone goes to jail, that guarantees that someone register generally, and that guarantees other outcomes is a good thing. And so,
was that a consensus decision in your office?
it was a broadly held decision, yes.
I'm over my time, Mr. Chair, and I may come back to this in a second round. Thank you.
Okay.